At best, we understand that there are many ways to be church with a capital C. Yet there is one shepherd, one Messiah, by whom all good things are made possible by the power of the resurrection. This life-changing power is entrusted to those of us called to follow Jesus by the Holy Spirit, so that others may come to know by our lives and by our churches, congregations like Redeemer, just how deeply God's love and mercy are present and active in this world for all people and for all of creation. Yes, at best, we understand that there are many ways to be church. Redeemer New Paltz has as our guiding mission statement, sharing Christ's welcome. And we have focus areas that further guide us by drawing our attention to food and housing justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion, earth care, and campus ministry. These have led us to do things like developing our monthly coffee house and open mic event for the campus and wider community, free fresh food giveaway, taking to the streets for Pride in June to convey a clear message of grace and welcome for LGBTQ folks who have for too long and still in far too many places have heard a false message of condemnation from the church. Redeemer New Paltz also has a calling to be a bridge builder, whether by coordinating our ecumenical Sunday school with the Episcopal Church, participating in the yearly interfaith Thanksgiving service, showing up at local peace vigils, or by sending your pastor recently to moderate a recent conversation hosted by Ulster activists, UACT, on the crisis in the Middle East, where those gathered could practice deeply listening to different points of view, a practice of listening vitally needed in this world where people are all too often acting and speaking or even yelling or acting out in violence first and listening, if at all, later. Yes, at best, we understand that there are many ways to be church. Over in Indonesia, I discovered this week, as I was reading, the ELCA, the National Lutheran Church of which Redeemer New Paltz is a part, over in Indonesia, the ELCA is partnering with the local Korea Kristen Batak Protestant Church to build support for individuals and families affected by HIV and AIDS. What began as a small ministry in 2003 in one hospital is now a regional ministry that provides all kinds of care for people living with HIV and AIDS, including diagnosis, treatment, nutrition, education, and advocacy for these people who face a tremendous amount of discrimination in Indonesia, despite laws that say that they may not be discriminated against. There are so many different ways, different expressions for how we can be church with a capital C in and for the world. Out in Wolverton, Minnesota, Faith Lutheran Church started worshiping not just on Sundays, but on Wednesdays, and with food trucks as part of ministry to reach out in rural areas in new and innovative ways. And one does not need to dig too deeply in recent news events to learn there are a great number of Lutherans out in Minnesota taking to the streets in protest against the oppressive and violent law enforcement actions of ICE as part of their expression of their faith, as part of their understanding of what it means to be church in and for the world. And then there's the work of the ELCA and many local congregations this week to participate in the National Day of Racial Healing on January 20th. Something we as a congregation could do perhaps in future years. It includes everything from choir concerts to a predominantly African-American church producing materials in Spanish for some of their Hispanic neighbors, to joint services being held together by primarily white congregations with historically black congregations. Being church with a capital C in the world can be such a wonderful and exciting thing to witness in all its different forms and expressions. Yet at the core of all of these different expressions of church ministry is the call, a sense that God is forming an ongoing commitment within us to follow Jesus. This Jesus is the chosen one of God, upon whom John the Baptist saw the Spirit of God descend. This Jesus is the Messiah, a recognition that dawns upon us by the power of the Holy Spirit, even as it did with the first disciples. And though Jesus renamed Simon Peter, which means the rock, it is Jesus who is the rock and our cornerstone as we strive to build church, capital C, for the world. It is Jesus and the power of the Holy Spirit who made it possible for the Apostle Paul to found, and then alongside a growing body of leaders, nurture that first church in Corinth that we heard about in our first lesson today. Even as it was Jesus and the power of the Holy Spirit that made it possible for a growing number of leaders to found Redeemer New Paltz some 72 years ago. And it will be by the power of the Holy Spirit and our lives being rooted and rerouted by Jesus, by the transforming power of the cross time and time again, that this congregation will continue to grow into our calling to make known the love and mercy of God that is already at work in the world. Make no mistake, this is a whole person commitment. This takes our time, our talents, and our financial investments. This takes our sweat and our tears, and sometimes facing our deepest individual and collective fears, so that we might be useful in the arms of grace, so that we might be daring in the face of a world that seems to be going mad. Communities such as Redeemer New Paltz and these other expressions of church that I've named today, and thankfully many, many more, we are needed as a bulwark against the storm. We are needed as a light, no, not as a light, but rather as tenders of a lighthouse from which the one light, that is Jesus Christ, shines and may continue to shine, so that others may also come to know of this Jesus, the Messiah, the great, great love that is calling to us all, so that our lives and this world might be changed, healed, revealed for all of the possibilities that God longs to see. We are called. And Jesus leads the way.